If you like Mountaineer Rants, you know there's 4 things you need to do. Number 1, you got to leave a comment down below.
Yeah.
Number 2, you got to hit like.
Yeah.
Number 3, you got to hit subscribe.
Yep.
And lastly, you got to hit that notification bell.
Oh, yeah. And if they do that, they'll be able to see all the future Mountaineer rants. Is that right?
Yeah!
Yeah.
Like and subscribe. Welcome to Mountaineer Rants. Here we are again. Glad to see you. I'm Terry. This is Paul. We're going to talk about the West Virginia schedule 2023, Big 12. You know that there are 4 new teams in the Big 12. I think we went over that already, but we get to play all 4 of them. Now, that's a wonderful thing. I think that's great, but you know that also means there's 4 teams we've been playing every year for 10 years and we don't play.
We get Cincinnati, the University of Central Florida, BYU, and Houston, and we play all 4 of those. But because of that, this year we don't play Texas, which is supposed to win the whole conference.
They think they're going to win the whole conference.
We don't play either of the Kansas teams, Kansas State or Kansas.
Which we miss you, Kansas State folks. We know a lot of you watched us last year when we did Mountaineer Rant, so we miss you.
Well, we'll play in the playoffs.
Well, yeah, in the playoffs. I'm good with that.
And we don't play Iowa State, who last year was not very good, and they only beat one Big 12 team, and that was us.
Yeah.
So
we had a little rivalry going with them, kind of, sort of, but they've taken them away too. So
we avoided a weak team, and we avoided a couple of strong teams, and we got the newcomers.
We did miss Kansas State, who was the best team in the conference last year during the season, and then we were going to miss Texas, who's expected to be the best team in the conference this year. So overall, it's not such a bad thing. However, our schedule is ranked pretty difficult, though, in the long run, I guess.
Well, let's show them the schedule and take a look at it. We start out with, because we have the potential to play 5 or 6 ranked teams this year. Yeah. We have been listed as having the toughest schedule in the Big 12, with home games against Duquesne, Pittsburgh, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, BYU, and Cincinnati, and our away games at Penn State, TCU, Houston, Central Florida, Oklahoma, and Baylor. So we have 5 Power 5 opponents that, possibly 6, that could be ranked. And we've got most of them on the road. It's the toughest schedule in the Big 12, right ahead of Texas.
I did read it was like the 3rd toughest schedule, I think, in the nation. And again, all of that's based on last year and stuff like that. So it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. It's based on criteria that may not necessarily be true for this year.
I'll take their assessment. I don't think some of our opponents are as tough as what they're being pumped up to be, especially the new ones, but I guess we'll find out. We start the season off away at Penn State, a top 10, some cases a top 5 team, and Penn State thinks they may have the chance to win the entire Big 10 and go to the playoffs.
Well, you know, we've got 5 games in September. We got 5 in September, 3 in October, and 4 in November. So September will probably tell the tale. Penn State up there, we haven't played them in a long time. I was a student when we beat them in Morgantown, 1984. I remember Kevin White, that was great. Of course, we remember Major Harris in 1988 beating them. We haven't played them for a while. They jumped to the Big 10. We're in the Big 12. I don't give us much of a chance to win up in Happy Valley.
We'll give you a preview of that as that game gets closer, but nobody is going to give us the favorite. With Penn State top 10, West Virginia finishing below 500, us going to Penn State, nobody is going to favor us in that game. And in fact, the spread's going to be by a number of touchdowns.
3 touchdowns. Yeah.
We'll return to Morgantown and play Duquesne the next week. Duquesne is a lower level team. We'll be expected to beat them. That'll be the home opener. And then the next week we play Pitt.
The backyard brawl is coming back to Morgantown. I don't know when the last time we played the backyard brawl in Morgantown, but let's win it. How about that?
It was a close game last year. Pitt is a potentially ranked team. They compete in the big ACC. And it's always a barn burner. You never know who's going to win that one.
Rivalry.
Then we play Texas Tech
At home.
at home, and Texas Tech has been a nemesis of Neil Brown for a number of years.
He hasn't beat them since we've been here, and now this year they're actually thinking that Texas Tech could be pretty good. I've seen some of them have them ranked in the top 25.
Some of them are ranked in the
Some
top
of them
25.
in the top 5 of the Big 12. We'll see. We haven't been able to beat them. I remember the one year we lost to them, and I said, well, there's no way we'll lose to them next year. And daggone if we didn't lose to them the next year too. So they've been a thorn in our side. It's time to eliminate that
Red
thorn.
Raiders.
Let's get that thorn out, and let's win that game this year.
It doesn't get any easier after that, because then we go to TCU to play. TCU was in the playoffs last
You're
year.
in the championship
They
game.
got a lot of people back, so
They lost a
it's-
lot of people too, though.
it's conceivable that you lose to Penn State, Pitt, Texas Tech, and TCU. We could be 4-1, assuming we beat Duquesne,
One of
going
them.
the next week to Houston to play on a Thursday night against Dana Holgerson's Houston team.
Now, there will be a week off between there, so it'll be 12 days between the TCU game and the Houston game. But you got to figure that he's going to be fired up to want to beat West Virginia. We don't have any extra motivation to beat him. But I think we're a better team than them. I don't think they're such a good team, but
Well,
that'll be a Thursday night.
that'll be a Thursday night in Texas. And then we come home and play Oklahoma State. We beat Oklahoma State last year. Oklahoma State's had some struggles preseason. They're not giving them a whole lot of kudos.
It's true.
I
Supposedly their schedule's not too tough this year.
I
according to
think
the-
their schedule's not very tough, and I don't think Mr. Gundy should be discounted. I
Well,
think he's a good coach.
The other thing about that, they're the only other team of the old Big 12 that has all 4 of the new Big 12 teams on their
Right.
schedule. So I thought that was interesting. Us and Oklahoma State. So we'll see. We'll see. what
After we
happens
play Oklahoma State at home, then we go to Central Florida. So if you want some sunshine, now that'll be in October.
there. That'll
at
be
the
right
end of
around
October.
Thanksgiving, or I mean Halloween. Excuse me. October 28th down in Central Florida. That's a game that we Mountaineer fans, if you're in Morgantown, can drive to. Some of us who live in Virginia could drive to. Well, no, I don't know. Central Florida, I think they're going to be pretty good.
They
got
have
a
a
good quarterback.
Stadium capacity of 45,000. They have a bowl record of 6-8. In 2017, they won the national title with Coach Scott Frost being undefeated in
And
2017.
he left to go to
Before he
Nebraska
left
and
to go to
didn't do so
Nebraska.
well at Nebraska then.
Yep.
But they got Gus Malzahn down there who coached at Auburn, and he's a very good coach. And Plumlee is the name of the quarterback from Ole Miss. He's pretty good. So we'll see.
In 2022, they lost to Duke in the Military Bowl, 30-13. So we'll see whether or not they play on our level. But again, we've got to play them down there.
Yeah.
After Central Florida, we get BYU, and we get them in Morgantown.
In Morgantown. We played them a few years ago up in D.C. Remember, we went to that game. We ended up winning that. It was a great game, 35-32.
Provo, Utah, Church of Latter-day Saints. BYU has about 34,000 students. They have 560 acres on their campus. And they too have played for a national title in the past. Their record is 56-34. They've won 2 of their last 3 bowls, including one against Central Florida in the Boca Raton Bowl in 2020.
Their quarterback you'll recognize when he comes to Morgantown, Keaton Slovis, played for Pittsburgh last year. Now he's transferred and playing for Brigham Young. So
Last year they played in the Independence Bowl and they beat SMU 24-23, so they've got a bowl win coming into us. As soon as that week's over, we have to go to Oklahoma. Now you have some
boy.
interesting thoughts on Oklahoma.
You
It's
know-
early for a prediction, so we're not really doing a lot of predictions, but he seems to think we've got a chance of knocking off Oklahoma again in Oklahoma.
The last time we won in Norman, Oklahoma was 1981. Again, I was a student, but that was right after coming off the Gator Bowl win, and we went, actually 82, I think it was. Forgive me, 81 was the Gator Bowl and 82. 40-some years since we've won in Norman, Oklahoma. I think we'll win that game. In fact, I think that Oklahoma's in a downspin. I think Venable is not a really good head coach. He was a very good defensive coordinator. It's just my opinion. I think we get that game out.
By the time it's October or November, we'll know whether or not they're howling for
It's
his
true.
scalp.
Well, Brown and Venable both could be gone by then. I mean,
Yeah,
who
that's-
knows?
that's
They
true.
both could be out.
People could be firing
Yeah,
everybody.
whole new head coaches on both sides.
After Oklahoma in November, we come back and play Cincinnati. Now, Cincinnati is going to be in Morgantown. They have about 47,000 students. Cincinnati beat Virginia Tech in the Military Bowl in 2018. They won in Birmingham Bowl in 2019. They lost to Wisconsin. They lost in the Peach Bowl to Georgia. They scored a total of 34 points in their all three losses. So Cincinnati, even though they had a flurry there for a while
Just a
of
few years
reputation
Yeah.
under Coach Ficknell,
Yep. They
who
went all
is
the way to the
now
championship.
left.
Yeah, they went to the finals, and they are the Bearcats, which is kind of dear to me because I was a Bearcat growing up. Went to Grafton High School, but Ficknell is gone, and
Ficknell's gone. I think they're struggling.
rebuilding.
They're known as a physical team, and they were pretty solid under Ficknell. But they'll come to Morgantown. So after that, November 18th, we have to travel to Baylor in November 25th at Baylor, and
They're not going to be too pleased about the fact that we beat them in Morgantown on Thursday night last year. But that'd be the last game of the season, so who knows? It might be one or the other might be playing to try to get a bowl game bid, or one or the other might be playing for Big 12 championship game bid, or they might both be also Rams and just trying to salvage a win out of the season. So we don't know. But that's
most
how
of
that's
the
going.
conventional wisdom suggests that Texas is the toughest team in the Big 12, and that West Virginia or Houston are the weakest.
Yeah.
Some of them put Houston, West Virginia, BYU, and Iowa State at the bottom. Some of them have Baylor down low, but they're all ranked higher than us, again, based on preseason. I don't think there's reasons to be pessimistic at this point. We were just talking about this earlier. Other teams don't know who our quarterback is. They don't. They know who our running back probably is. They don't know who our receivers are. They don't know what our offensive scheme is. They don't know that we've got a tight end that can catch. They won't know what kind of an offense they're looking at.
True.
They will expect us to be like we were last year, which was not very good, especially in the defensive secondary. And nobody really knows what our defensive secondary is going to be like except the coaches. So
true.
by the time we get to the latter part of that season, we'll know whether we have a defense or not.
And I will say this: under Neil Brown, this team tends to get better as the season goes along. I think that's pretty much showed in history, even though they haven't been real good and haven't won a lot. And he also did say that the one. Yeah, I lost track of what I was going to say.
This is a Neil Brown season here. This is what he wants. He finally has
Competition.
mobile quarterbacks. He finally has depth at each of the positions. A number of the places are young, but I think they're getting the reps up. All of the coaches are impressed with the strength and that our strength coach has done. The boys have put on weight and they're faster. And for the first time, they're really talking about some solid offensive line, some solid running backs, and
lots of
some
players.
talented quarterbacks.
What
We
is-
haven't had those three things in a decade.
What he did say is that if you look at the prognosticators for the Big 12 for the last few years, go back and look at that. They haven't been so good. They really.
The
Baylor won the
prognosticators have been
TCU.
wrong. Well,
So
he
that's
was
what I was trying to
irritated.
point. I was trying to
At
make.
Big 12 Media Days, they even had the wrong logo behind him.
Yeah.
Plus, they picked us to finish last behind all four of the newcomers.
All four of the newcomers.
And
That's
without
an insult.
and he's going to use that as inspiration. It's really hard to make a statement your very first week against the top 5 team in Happy Valley.
Yeah.
But he has, it's all within his control. This is the group that could make a statement, so we'll see. Let's not forget, TCU played under 500 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And last year, TCU went to the playoffs.
Yeah. Went to championship.
It can happen.
Yeah. Well, we're going to tee it up pretty soon. That's what I'm looking forward to. Thank you all for watching.